I will now move on to our second speaker this evening, whose resume I have in front of you, Mr. Mark Harrod from Puffin Produce Limited. Mark states he was born in Ely in Cambridgeshire, worked in agriculture there from 1979, principally for large food producers, did a management buyout of one of those, which was Fenmark Produce in 1998, backed by 3I Venture Capital. He has owned and sold a wide range of businesses since selling the largest of those to Asda in 2015. We have a business interest in root vegetables, AD, green energy and food waste, flowers, and as of today, 4 main businesses still remain, namely Puffin Produce, which he's a 50% shareholder and a non-executive director. And Mark has been involved in that business since its early days. He has RE Evans Farming Limited, wholly owned with his wife, which is 2,500 acres in Pembrokeshire, growing potatoes, cauliflowers, daffodils for Puffin, and they also have the odd 700 cows running around in 2 herds supplying milk to First Milk, another well-known cooperative. Agilis, they own is a hotel business in the east of England, comprising of 2 gastropubs and a watermill. Fenmark Produce Limited, still wholly owned, that supplies major UK retailers with prepared fresh produce. Mark moved to Pembrokeshire full-time in 2012, married to Rachel from a local farming family here, and they have 3 young sons, 3, 5 and 7, and as he says, he was a late starter. Away from work, he is a keen rugby fan. I haven't asked him actually about what colours he supports in the Six Nations, but I'll guess. And he still participates in endurance sports still. I've got to be careful how I say this, despite the miles on the clock. Mark loves the outdoors and fabulous coastline of Pembrokeshire. He especially loves getting outdoors with his family on the farm and local trails and beaches of Pems, whatever the weather. Mark is a passionate advocate of more homegrown Welsh fresh food, finding its way to consumers in this country. He was and will remain an advocate of Brexit, and Mark hopes that doesn't alienate too many of you young people. Ladies and gentlemen, our second speaker for this evening is Mr. Mark Harrod. Thank you. Mark, it's yours.
Thank you very much, Richard. I'm just going to do some screen sharing. Hopefully the technology will back us up. Can you all see that? Let's get that on presentation mode. Yeah, thank you. So thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you also for having me to talk at your annual Rural Affairs Conference. I'm delighted to attend and support the event. We're going to put some pace into this because I've got a lot to talk about in 20 minutes. And my brief that I was given tonight was, how did you get to where you are and what inspired you? Well, the golf ball before you is part of a story of inspiration that I'm going to come back to. Nothing to do with playing golf itself, which for me spoils a good walk. But it did inspire me back in the day, some 45 years ago. But inspiration comes for me in 2 respects. One is my business life, and the other is my personal life. So I thought, bit of death by PowerPoint, but I'm going to start by giving you an answer to those couple of posed questions. In my business life, something that inspires me is the people I work with, and always the people I work with, and the people throughout the organisations that I'm involved in, their energy, their commitment, their tenacity, and their ability to keep going to the well. And I guess many of us have seen in the last year of lockdown just how resourceful people are in business, and how adaptive and fleet of foot and agile they can be, a word that Helen used earlier. And I think we've seen that in spades in the wider UK economy, and that's a delight to me, and a point that I don't want to get drawn on about Brexit and taking control, which I feel is what suits us. So in my personal life, it's my family and my children, and especially having 3 children under 7. It's the contrast with my business life. They have different needs, they ask different questions, they have different time frames and references, and every day is a new day and an energetic one when you've got children like that in the house. And it's taken me a while to get that balance in my life. Early doors, I was all about business and less about family. And I've come to know with more grey hair that it's actually about both. So looking at the businesses we're involved in, 4 businesses, as Richard already mentioned, and perhaps some of you surprised to see their hotel business against that sort of food and agri sector that I've been involved in, as I said, since 1979. But they do come together, and I'll explain to you how they come together. Moving on specifically to talk about Fenmark first. Fenmark's involved in these sorts of ingredients, and a quick stare at the screen here and prizes for anybody that can guess all of those ingredients. I can certainly see some shredded carrots, some sliced courgette, some PSB, if you know what that is, purple sprouting broccoli. I think there's some chilies there, there's some red onion there. Perhaps one of the harder ones to do. Do you know what the white product is? It's bean sprouts. So the business that I'm involved in over there, we've been at it for 50 odd years, but only 25 of those in this sort of prepared sector, produces products like this, different form fill bags, really aimed at the convenience sector, but as you can see, categorized in different meal occasions and meal choices. That business runs from a single site in Cambridgeshire. We employ some 250 people there to manufacture across 8 different production lines. And this sort of marketplace is typified by high cost, high technology equipment, all in stainless steel. It's expensive. The production line on the left-hand side of the picture there, you can see, was £2.5 million, recent investment. And that produces and fills foil trays very accurately with multiple products up to 5 or 6 different ingredients at 100 packs a minute. The line next to it can do 120 packs per minute of a vertical form fill prepared veg product. And we produce 1.2 million of those on average every week. The business turns over about £43 million. And a typical story, and I'll touch on it more so in Puffin, is the level of investment that you need to make to stay in the game now. We are looking at taking out cost, protecting ourselves against inflation and inflation in the living wage, and taking people away from roles that are not of this era, I would say, manual handling being a classic example. So a lot of our investment is targeted at removing cost and improving accuracy and efficiency. A very important aspect of those manufacturing businesses. 4 different customers that you can see there on the right hand side of the screen: Sainsbury's, Asda, Waitrose and Aldi. So keeping on with the pace, there is actually a connection between our farming business here in Wales and Fenmark, only coming about more latterly, but we do produce cauliflower here that finds its way into packs there, using our kind of seasonal benefit, milder winters. And also we grow potatoes, and they find their way across to Fenmark, and that's a recent addition to our business. But the business of Fenmark spends something like 20 million per year with a number of suppliers, both at home and abroad, 26 of them. And to give you some idea of the sort of complexity involved in these short shelf life 3 to 5 day products, there's 157 different raw material specifications, and on a weekly basis we have a thing called items to count. So there are 250 items in that factory. So that might be an element of packaging or an element of product. There are 250 different ingredients, and all of those need managing on a just-in-time basis. So it's a really it's quite a logistics challenge in its own right. Moving on, that business, picking up on tonight's theme of inspiration, that business relies on inspiration and innovation at its heart to create new products. And Lou there on the right hand side of your screen manages that process for us, and she creates those products and uses, and this is the first connection to our hotel business, and especially so in the last year when Lee has had his feet up for a bit, uses our chef patron Lee Bai to help to innovate products. And Lee's part in this challenge is that he is at the coalface of the restaurant business, and he's seeing what trends are in that business on a daily, weekly basis. And those trends are the ones that eventually roll through to be the sorts of things that we're interested in at home to create for ourselves. And so we're looking down the track, thinking about products and ingredients that meet customers' needs in meal occasions. What's really interesting about COVID and the effect on COVID and lockdown is it's completely changed people's buying habits. More meals to share, more meal occasions, many more lunch times in the home, and it's being agile and being alive to those changes and bringing new products that is particularly key for that type of business. So staying with the theme of Lee and the hotel business, when my slides will advance, that is, they won't at the moment. Sorry about that, don't know what's going on. Give me a minute. I might stop sharing and start sharing again. See if that will unlock me. We can talk about our interest in hotels. A couple of gastropubs left and right on the Norfolk coast, and the one in the middle is a mill in Suffolk. And these businesses, we've been around for a long time. We went into them as a bit of a kind of hedge against being all in one type of market. And the thing I was particularly attracted to was the prospect of being. Can you hear me all right? I've lost my sound. Sorry, people. Can you hear me, Richard?
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Okay, that's fine. Somebody gives me a thumbs up. That's fine. I'll keep going. Yeah, the thing that we particularly like about this business that's different to our other businesses is that we deal with the end consumer. And we sell straight to that end consumer, and that gives you a real sense of what people are about. And one of the lovely things about people that eat in restaurants is they don't come back for a steak next year and ask for 2 or 3% off. And dealing with the retailers, that tends to be the direction of travel. Is what we sold them last year, they would like it for less next year. But that's not so in this particular business. Turnover wise, just to give you some idea of the size, about £4 million normally, and that's obviously an important caveat in COVID. Team of 85, they've had a really challenging year. Enjoyed sitting at home to start with, but soon got fed up with it and worried about their jobs. And despite government support, just to give you some idea of what the industry at large, with just 3 properties, it costs us £80,000 a month to be closed, and we've had to weather that, as I say, after support. But we've kept all of our people. We paid everybody on full pay for as long as we could, and eventually dropped back to the 80%. And we're really excited about opening up again, and we could see the pent-up demand that there is for people to get out and enjoy our products. There's 48 bedrooms as well, so people can come and stay, and we serve something like 100,000 meals in a year, which qualifies us to know what people like. And one of the interesting stats from last week when we opened again in England was that the Lifeboat, the property on the left-hand side, sold 40 kilograms of ribs in one day, which I think is shows what the Great British Appetite is all about. Moving on to our farming business, keeping up a canter because I've much to share, based in Pembrokeshire, as we've said, and these are a few shots of Pembs. Top right, we're on the bottom of the sort of Bridesbay Peninsula, so you're looking sort of north in that shot towards St David's, as we pick up some grass last year, some forage. In the middle picture, there's some sprouts growing. We started growing sprouts last year, and that's our Christmas offering of sprouts on the left-hand side at the bottom of the driveway. And we're hoping to get up to retailers with those in future. A nice field of potatoes on the bottom right, sprouts, collie being cut there, and then a field of daffodils. And I always look at daffodils and people go, oh, lovely, a field of daffodils. And I remind myself that if you're seeing a field of daffodils, something's gone wrong. And in this particular instance, they are unsold daffodils from last March, when they were a non-essential item and we effectively couldn't sell them. And indeed, frankly, people weren't interested. If you remember that shopping environment then, where people were petrified and the last thing on their mind was picking up bunches of daffodils. So that was a bit of a knock for us. And as Richard said, we've got a few cows. I think you've heard a few of those stats. Again, just to give you some idea of that business, turnover, 4 million, a team of 24. We started with 2 or 3. I look at that number and think, wow, that's a lot of people, but we're ready for growth. We've got a great team. And we've got quite an intensive business, I guess, growing 300 acres of spuds, 120 acres of cauliflower, some daffs, and now a commercial scale of sprouts. And we also grow forage crops, so maize, wheat, and of course lots of grass. Our milk goes to First Milk, and all of our other products go to Puffin, which is quite nice because we're a shareholder in that, so we always get paid, which is not something in farming you can always be certain of. We're excited about the future and the prospects of the farm, and I really relate to a lot of things that Helen said, and I'll touch on that before we finish tonight. In our case, we're trying to think about how we can go robot milking, but also leave ourselves the option of grazing, because we think that's the direction of travel that we need to be considering for the future and the needs of our consumers and customers. So finally, we get to Puffin Produce. This has been a really great success story for this part of Wales, and for Wales in general. I think we've got a brand, Blaseteer, and we have simply made a business out of selling more Welsh produce to Welsh consumers. Not going to win us any Nobel Prizes for innovation, but it's surprising there is a significant gap in the market, and it remains in many instances to put more produce in front of consumers. We've been at it since 1995, and I've been involved since long before then. We've got a team of 175 people at that business in Haverfordwest. Turnover's now up to 30 million. Last year we grew some 65,000 tonnes of potatoes, mainly in Pembrokeshire, but some in East Wales. And we supply cauliflower, savoy, leeks, daffodils, i.e. other veg in addition. And that's a growing part of the business. We kind of came from the potato expertise. We own 50% as a family, and we've got business partners in Hugh Thomas and John Langmead, who since last July own the other 2 legs of that particular horse. Unusually, and I say unusually, and I'm qualified to say that, having owned businesses in England, we supply all of the major retailers bar one from one factory, and that is a bit of a USP for us. These guys are not normally good bedfellows. We don't supply, that's better grammar, Lidl. And the reason we don't, and if anyone wants to talk to Lidl about it and get them to ring me, I'm happy to talk about it. They won't pay the money, so we won't supply them, and we won't undermine the rest of our customers that give us proper commercial terms. But getting all those businesses in under one factory roof is a USP for us, and it's because we are the only gig in town in Wales that can do what we do, that they've all come and talked to us about putting Welsh produce on their shelves for consumers. And if we don't get arrogant or flabby, long may that continue. We do supply them in branded form as well as own label. Hopefully some of you are familiar with this packaging. It's out there and available now. If you'd like to go and buy some, that would be great. But you can also buy own label, and we still benefit. And you can see various degrees of what I might call Welshness there, and Aldi probably doing the best job about shouting about that product in their current packaging format, which we're delighted with. More importantly, as I said, we're growing more steadily into other veg areas, and we see lots and lots of opportunity to put more of these types of products in front of Welsh consumers. Getting them started is always the challenge. Getting critical scale, having continuity, those sorts of challenges. Stop this being a kind of an overnight decision, and it has to evolve. And we started with 15 acres of daffodils, and we've probably got a couple of hundred in the business now. I think we produce 500 acres of cauliflower, for example. And we're not yet able to supply all of the daffodils and leeks that Welsh consumers would like to buy from us. So that's a story still unfolding. As I said, it was a business owned by growers, and you would expect, therefore, for it to be front and centre that we think very much about our grower suppliers, and we have a very strategic partnership with them. It's often trotted out word, but we sit down, we've done benchmarking with them to help them to see where they are. In my experience, and I say this as being a farming family as well, I like benchmarking. If you can see the rabbit, you know what it's all about. You can get after best practice, etc. So we do a bit of benchmarking, and then we talk to them about on-farm investment. We have a very joined-up approach to that. Across that right-hand box there, you can see the sort of subjects that we talk about. And I was drawn yesterday to, I think, a comment that David made when he was talking about eggs, saying that the red meat industry is a long way behind us, him. And I would agree with that. I think we are much, much further down the road of left and right-hand stuff here, talking in a transparent way, authentically, and in our case, backing that up with the right sort of long-term contracts with proper margins in them, rather than price on the day stuff, which is for me out with the arc. Coming back to this theme of Welshness, I'm not going to do all of these stats on here, but I think the important thing is the bottom right-hand corner, the red box, that when asked, 87% of people will always buy Welsh if the price was the same. And I think this is a really key point here, that you can't just stick it out there and expect everybody to pay more. Some people are living on a living wage, and their money needs to work for them. Our job is to make sure that we can compete with the other options through investment and through our kind of guile and our supply chain, and making that very efficient. And that's what we work to do. But we've got that kind of groundswell of Welsh public opinion behind us. And it really works. And the stats on the left-hand side here, as we've migrated customers who used to have what we call a kind of bland Union Jack type presentation, have migrated into us doing their Welsh stores estate for them. Those are the sort of growth figures that they have told us, and we have tracked with them. They are real numbers. The latest in was Aldi in 2017, and it was great to get a quote from the managing director of Aldi backing that up. This is really powerful stuff. Often we want to say things about our business and how good it is, but getting your customers to go public about that was really, really helpful. And there's a picture of one of our key growers, Ian Elliott, and his family. I said earlier that the manufacturing game is all about investment, and it absolutely is. To be at the races, you've got to be in the races, and it is a bit of a foot race. It's a space race for capital and automation and taking out cost. And in Puffin, we spent 25 million in the last 10 years. We've created probably, we think, one of the most, if not the most developed potato pack houses in Europe. Despite our size and scale, a typical English packer would have probably 6 to 8 times our turnover, but we're punching above our weight because of our investment, and we plan to invest further in end-of-line automation, and also we're building a brand new prepared potato and vegetable facility, which will link with the sister work that we've done across in Fenmark, and we hope to bring a sort of range of potato products to market as well, and we might export those to England. And bottom right hand corner is a picture of the groundworks underway. I should at this stage give a nod to Welsh Government and European money. We have been the beneficiaries of some grant, and it's very difficult to build these sorts of scale projects when you're looking at bank funding, where you build a building for 8 million quid, the valuer comes along and says it's worth 4 because it's in West Wales, and then you try and borrow 75% of that to build it. It's very difficult. So those grants are particularly key to support that. We're working with growers and have been for many years. 2017, we started carbon footprinting our growers, and we've got some great back history on that, and that's going to be really useful in the journey ahead. Now then, personal inspiration, and I'm conscious of time and I will keep going at pace. I've stuck some words up here for you all to look at. 3 of them don't really fit on this page, but these are words and things that inspire me. And I was drawn to the fact I was sort of playing that, am I allowed to say bullshit bingo on this call? Playing that when Helen was talking about some words, and I ticked off many of the things that words that she used, and indeed, Richard, you went on to use. So I was pleased to see that I seem to be at the races and in the ballpark for this kind of stuff. But look, these are things that matter in business, and the 3 words I want to pick off there, and it's a reminder here for me to stop sharing so you can see my ugly mutt whilst I talk about these. There's 3 words on that screen that didn't really fit. One of them was 3 O-levels, one of them was golf balls, you remember the golf ball, and the other was sustainability. I'm going to finish in 2.5 minutes time, having talked about those 3 things, and be 2 minutes over. Please forgive me. The first one is 3 O-levels. I left school with 3 O-levels. I'm not proud of it. I took 9, but I didn't go to school much in my last year because I was a bit disenfranchised. And so this is a bit of a shout out to anybody that's on this call that has been told, even if it's inadvertently, that you're not really that smart because of your exam results. You might be world class at some of the other words that I just had on that screen, and nobody's ever tested you against those things. And I have put them to good use. And one of those O-levels, by the way, is in woodwork. I have put them to good use, and I'm a great believer in the fact that everybody has a talent. Not everybody finds out what their talent is. So please, if you've come through a tough educational process and you're starting out, if you can bring energy, determination, tenacity, positivity to your working environment and to those that work around you and infect them positively, you will do well. And we interview for this sort of stuff now. It's easy to cobble together a great CV. We look for some of these sorts of things. And as I said, you've never been tested. You might be the best person in the world at some of these things. Bear that in mind. The other one is sustainability. A quick shout for that, really. Like I said, I'm a bit of a fossil. I've been in the industry since 1979. I have never seen as much change and transformation as I have seen in sustainability, and the agenda for that in the last year, especially under COVID, it's like we all had an opportunity to do some reflection. When I hear people like KitKat saying they want that product to be carbon net zero by 2025, it changes my mind about sustainability, that I've been watching as a commercial guy thinking, where can I extract value from this opportunity? Where is it? At the moment, it seems fashionable. People are talking about it. How is it going to help me in my enterprise to garner more margin or be successful? And what I would now say to anybody starting out is hitch your wagon to sustainability, because people are going to pay for things and they're going to seek out people that are ahead of the game, and that is going to give you competitive edge in a world that is inspired in the large by sameness. Finally, and I'm over and I've got a minute left, golf balls. I was inspired as a child by golf balls. My parents were, like many typical families, not getting on desperately well when I was a youngster. Around the age of 11 or 12, I lived next to a golf course. One of the things I was discovered was that golfers, by and large, hit the ball all over the place, not where they're supposed to, and they lose their golf balls. And sometimes they've only hit them once. And if you happen to live nearby, you'll find them in the dikes and in the cornfields and in the streams and in the ponds. And if you go out at night when you're not supposed to be on the golf course and you dig around with a torch and bare feet in the ditch and you find these golf balls and you wash them and clean them up, and you take advice from your father, who was a policeman, that you don't sell them back to golfers because that's stolen goods and that's illegal, but you sell them back to golfers on the basis that it's a finding fee for cleaning them, you can make a living out of that. And at one stage I had 1,000 golf balls and they were worth £1 each, and I was 11. And on one day I took 250 quid 45 years ago from selling golf balls. And I went to the sweet shop down the road called Thornton's, and I bought pink shrimps, jelly snakes, blackjacks, fruit salads, all sorts of stuff, and a box of 6 assorted jam tarts. And I went, sat by the river and ate the bloody lot. And I felt great. And I felt a bit sick at the same time. But the connection here is find your golf balls. What inspires you? In my case, I worked out that if I sold things and made some money, I could treat myself. And I quite enjoyed that feeling of treating myself. So go out and find your golf balls, because everybody has a golf ball in them, I'm absolutely sure.